Okay, you guys can turn to the very last little slide in that 6.4 that we didn't finish today. Should be on page 12. And actually what I'm going to do with you guys is I'm just going to, let's just read that last little bit, that last little section, and then we'll kind of go from there. We're going to read about the sympathetic nerves and then the parasympathetic, and I'll go through it and explain it as we read it. I don't know, they're, sometimes they can just explain it. It's just better to just read it. So, okay, it says the sympathetic nerves activate. I'm on page 219, by the way, I'm sorry, 219, where it says sympathetic nerves. The sympathetic nerves activate the fight or flight response by stimulating the adrenal gland to release epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. Okay, so you guys have heard of adrenaline. Okay, you think, okay, well, I'm in, like, somebody scares me, my adrenaline's pumping. Okay, well, that's exactly right. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. It says supposedly in primitive times, when a person was confronted by a predator, the fight or flight response, characterized by increased heart and breathing rates and sweating, prepared the individual either to fight or to run. In modern times, the sympathetic response is physiologically the same, but it can be triggered by any type of situation that we think is stressful. So not just like if somebody scares you, but anything that's stressful. You have a test coming up, or you're anxious about something else, you're anxious about having a conversation with somebody or whatever. It says you'll learn more about the fight or flight system in the endocrine system. Okay, the preganglionic neurons in the sympathetic system arise from the spinal segments extending from T1 through L2. Okay, so preganglionic versus postganglionic. Okay, if you go back to that picture at the top of page 219, remember the ganglion is that little bulb of cell bodies. It's like a cluster of cell bodies. Okay, preganglionic is going to be in front. Okay, it happens before that ganglion. Post is going to be after. So preganglionic neurons in the sympathetic system arise from the spinal segments extending from T1 to L2. For this reason, the sympathetic system is also called thoracolumbar division. These neurons secrete acetylcholine to stimulate the postganglionic neurons in the paravertebral ganglia. Okay, I know that sounds like crazy. Think about it. These neurons secrete acetylcholine to stimulate these other neurons. Okay, so remember that acetylcholine is related to muscle. Okay, or muscle, that's the neurotransmitter that makes muscles contract. So think that through. Sympathetic, skeletal muscles are getting pumped up because you're ready to run or fight or whatever. So that's a good way to remember acetylcholine does that. Okay, it says the paravertebral ganglia are named after their location. They're parallel to the spinal cord. You guys can see that. Okay, they sit right even with the spinal cord. You can tell that that ganglia, okay, that's on that nerve, you can see it sits right beside it. Okay, the postganglionic neurons release the neurotransmitter norepinephrine. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense for you guys. There's a really good picture in our old book that shows this a little bit better. Anyway, so that's the difference there. Okay, let's look at parasympathetic nerves. Okay, it says on page 220, in contrast to the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, remember this is our rest and digest, controls all of the automatic day in and day out functions of the circulatory, respiratory systems, etc. For these reasons, it's sometimes called the resting and digesting. In addition, after a fight or flight situation, the parasympathetic nervous system produces a calming effect that returns the body to a normal state. Preganglionic parasympathetic neurons originate in one of two separate regions, either the brain stem or the sacral or lowermost region of the spinal cord. Okay, so that's where we see these specific neurons coming from. For this reason, the parasympathetic system is also known as the craniosacral division. Activation of both preganglionic and postganglionic nerves in this system triggers a release of acetylcholine. Although acetylcholine stimulates skeletal muscle, it also inhibits activity in cardiac and smooth muscle. Okay, so it makes the muscles work. Skeletal muscle says it inhibits activity in cardiac and smooth muscle. So interesting. So they don't go into a lot of detail here, as you guys can see. This book last year went into all kinds of detail. Main things I want you guys to know about this, okay, as far as autonomic nervous system goes. Sympathetic is your fight or flight. Okay, think epinephrine, get your norepinephrine that makes your heartbeat faster. You know, I mean, it gets you going, fight or flight, okay, versus rest and digest, which is your parasympathetic nervous system. As far as preganglionic and postganglionic neurons, you guys don't necessarily need to know that, okay? I do want you to know, if you're looking at this picture like on 219, I do want you to understand, one, what a ganglia is, excuse me. I want you to understand the spinal nerves and the plexuses, okay? So make sure you know what, you know, there is no thoracic plexus. All that goes to kind of your trunk. You have brachial plexus, lumbar, and sacral. Okay, so those are the main things I want you guys to take away from that. And yeah. So, okay. You guys can have a good day.